We'd now like to take the conversation ahead and talk about importance of new age technologies in bringing innovation to life with Mr. Sandip Paul, design consultant at Paul Studio. Welcome, Mr. Paul.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining in. And special thanks to Dell Technologies for having me here today and sharing my thoughts. And I'm really thankful for the wonderful introduction which was just given up. Without much ado, I'll start my presentation and I'll take you through some of my thoughts. So what I'm going to talk to you guys today is all about, we don't believe in stop at nothing. You have to be always at it, and today's day and age, it's the need of the hour that we need to keep creating and find solutions. And probably for the past 16 years at Paul Studio, we've designed more than 700 products and developed under 121 categories across 18 countries. So we really believe that we don't want to stop at anything. We want to touch lives at every possible way, using the technology and whatever resources we can find along the way of adding value to everyday life. But I'm going to talk to you about something which is very, very critical. What stops us, actually? Even before when we say that nothing stops us, but there are certain things which actually stops us. What happens is that when we talk about innovation, suddenly we start thinking that, it's rocket science. But no, innovation is no rocket science. It's pretty simple. It's only we need to be participative, and we need to participate in our everyday life. And that's how we can actually bring in a lot of change, and good change, I would say, in our work life. I'll start with a very simple example here of a cloth line peg. At the first look of it, probably you will find no problem at all. And what's the reason behind this? It's called habituation. Habituation is something which stops us from thinking of it as a problem, while there is a problem. So now, if I go back and show you the image again, if you start thinking more deeply, you will understand that the cloth pegs would break after a certain time due to the exposure to the sun rays, because it is made of plastic. Also, there are metal inserts, if you see in the product, and these would leave rust marks onto your clothes, right? So, and how do you solve this? Because it's easy to solve a problem which everyone sees, but it's very difficult to solve a problem which actually nobody is noticing. But the solution was pretty simple. The solution was lying in the problem itself. We wanted to take away the metal insert and create something which would still have the functionality and have I can do away with the extra element which was actually causing the clip to break apart and also causing the rust marks in the clothes. So this was the design which won the prestigious Red Dawn Award in 2010. And the beauty of the product is that it's been so well crafted out without any metal insert that it functions, and it has a dual jaw. So even if one side breaks, the other jaw is still there to support the activity. So in a way, we kind of increase the life of the product twice, I could say. Another example, again, which is a habituation, I would say, problem, which stops us again from seeing a problem, was that we are aware of this product as a multi-plug, and we have also used 2-pin plugs in various gadgets and products. So what is the problem here? And what did I observe here? It was very, very interesting. The 2-pin plugs would fall off due to gravity, because the product was flat on the bottom, and flat on the top, and flat on the face. So what was the problem here was that due to gravity, the 2-pin plug would fall off, and also because these 2-pin plugs are not standardized and the pins get loose after a while. So how do you again solve this problem? A very simple solution here again, adding a 40-degree to the product, the base of the product, and using gravity as a problem solver here. While the problem was caused due to the gravity, but here what I'm trying to solve is by using a gravity lock. So this was the final product, and you can see that how very well you can hold the 2-pin plug and it won't fall off. And interestingly, it's been for quite some time now one of the best sellers on Amazon. So that's how you identify those small problems in your everyday life, and you try to solve them with simplicity. Yeah, talking about voluntary simplicity, we always believe, can we uncomplicate things? I'll share another example here. We all are aware of how we struggle with the ice trays to take out ice to cool our drinks, right? And we've all struggled, and the primary reason is because of the shape of the ice. And when we were approached to design an ice tray, we thought, can we do away with the shape itself and try to identify what is the real problem, and not just design another ice tray? So when we observed closely, we realized was that the problem was with the shape of the ice itself, because it was cube, and as we all know, that water, when it expands, when it cools or it freezes, it expands. So on all the sides, it's kind of exerting a lot of pressure, and that's how it is getting stuck to the tray. And believe me, companies have gone to greater extents to further complicate the mechanisms to do the simple job. So what we tried here was that we changed the shape of the ice itself. And what we did, we took the natural form, the drop, the unit form of the liquid, and we tried to carve it out into the form of an ice tray. And the result was amazing. We had a wonderful looking ice in the shape of a drop, and we also had a very cool looking ice tray. And the beauty was that you did not twist and turn the ice tray anymore. Once it cools, due to the hemispherical surface, simple physics, now again it pops up and it's about an higher, and you can easily scoop up the ice and use it for your drink. So I think by using voluntary simplicity, we can solve a lot of problems and not getting into the complexities of stuff and keeping it simple. Another aspect which I wanted to touch upon today, we all are from the manufacturing background, is that insight versus data. At times we are bombarded with so much of data, but really do we have the insights with us to find the right problem you're solving? Like most of the data which we gather is quantitative, and does it really help to come up with solutions? For example, we had this data with us that 80% of Indians prefer a wall mount LED or LCD TV. And when we were approached to design India-specific LED TV, the only information or data I would say was that the 80% of people are wanting it on the wall mount. But what was the insight that we found? That we created a very interesting product I'm going to share in a couple of slides from now. Is that we started visiting various consumers at their homes. So we always believe that we have to understand the context of the usage of a product. So what we found was most people were actually since most of them were wall mounting it, so now they did not have any space for keeping their DTH boxes, because earlier when they had those CRT TVs, they also had the furnitures, the tables on which the TV would stand, and those things also had spaces to keep your mobile, sorry, not mobile. I mean the remote control, the DTH box, and other accessories. So what we observed here was very interesting. If you look at the image on the right, you'll see that the stand is missing. Well, of course, we don't need the stand when it is wall mounted, but from a manufacturing point of view, if you look at it, it's such a waste of resource. Like the company had invested in the tooling of the part, but the part was of no use once it reached the consumer's house. And when we asked them where is the stand, they said probably it's lying somewhere in the storeroom, or some people were also not aware, and some would have thrown it away. Another interesting observation here was that now that they did not have any space, but they still had to place the gadgets, the peripherals, along with the television. Now they were making these makeshift arrangements like these glass shelves and all. And so that's when I was struck with an idea, was that can we do something with this insight that people are using these kind of glass shelves? This was the idea, where we converted the stand into a tray, and it could always be used as a stand if you were not too well mounted. So we found a purpose for the stand which had otherwise lost any purpose. So talking about this example, why I took up this example was talking about cost efficiency. How do we actually, add value without much cost to a product? So this became a very popular product, and was launched by LG Electronics in 2013. It was called the Transform TV, and you could, very well store or stack your peripherals, and it would still look neat and not look like a jugaad kind of a thing. So the product pricing was similar, but the utility was much higher because we had found a utility for the product. So the point I'm trying to make here is that sometimes you don't always get to a solution with data. We always have to use our creative intelligence to come to a point where we identify those insights and then give the right solutions to the problems which we have identified. Talking about AI-enabled smart sensors and talking about cost efficiency, we concluded a project where the client had approached, with the electronic parts, and they were wanting to create some sensors. And while just casually having a discussion, we proposed that can we design something which we could have a common enclosure and create multiple SKUs out of those enclosures. And at that point in time, we had no clue that we would end up creating 4 products, and each day we are thinking of adding more utilities to the product. And the beauty was that we designed it in such a manner that by just changing one small element of the front fascia, we could create multiple functions. Like we started off with the eye blaster, then we went on to design the occupancy sensor, the gas and the smoke detectors. And in fact, during the COVID times, we also introduced the contactless IR thermal sensor. And all of this was possible because we were trying to optimize the cost of the product and create an aesthetics of the product through which we could convey safety, robustness, and advanced technology through the product, yet keep the cost very, very low. A brief overview of the entire process, where we actually started working on the PCB itself, and we created many options of how do we actually wall mount it, and how do we. And the final solution was that by just adding these small deco elements, you could create multiple variants. For example, if you add this deco, you have a temperature sensor. If you use this deco, you can have a motion or a smoke detector, and the other one, and so on and so forth. So it was a very interesting project where we limited the expenses on the tooling investments to a great extent. And I must say thanks to Dell Technologies, because a lot of precision work is happening at our end, and we're very happy to actually use the high-tech technologies available to us, made available to us by Dell. And this is one example of a very successful project. And as I said, every day we're finding new opportunities to add value through the same product. Talking of trends, what's really catching up these days is artificial intelligence. But at the same time, I would say, since I'm from the design background, that creative intelligence is equally important, if not more. And so the need of the hour is actually how do we, add and bring two forces together: the data-driven and the insight-driven. Because most of artificial intelligence is data crunching, so it's data-driven. And most of creative intelligence is insight-driven. So qualitative and quantitative, when you merge together, and I think we can create some real wonders in the product manufacturing space. The big question is, can AI be trained by creative intelligence? And probably the answer is yes. And we've seen a very, very interesting example by one of the very popular and a famous designer, Philip Stark, who partnered with Cartel to design the chair. Well, he says that he hasn't designed it; it's the software which has actually designed whatever was in his mind. So, in a way, the software was actually able to understand, was fed with information of the style and the nature of designs which designer Philip Stark would normally do. And by analyzing all those data, they started creating these solutions, and eventually the final result was exactly the way Philip Stark would have crafted it by his own hand. So I think here it's a very beautiful example of, and it's called the AI chair by Philip Stark. It's a very beautiful example which sets a trend in the industry, actually, that where emotional aspects and the poetry in design can also be achieved through data-driven inputs. And there's another shift which is happening, which is a very interesting shift which is happening, is that we're moving from user-centered to human-centered. So when we talk about user-centered design, so most of it means the consumer is centered, and most of the products and services are aimed at luring the buyer. So once the product is sold, job done. That was a thing. That's, I think, is a thing of the past. So what we're moving towards, or moving ahead, is human-centered, because design for everyone involved in the experience of using the product and the service, and not just the buyer who's paying for it. And what we need to look at is how do we design with empathy, as I said, artificial intelligence and creative intelligence. And when we talk about creative intelligence, it mostly relies on empathy to derive those insights. This is a slide from a recent situation at a personal situation at home, where the geyser had conked off, and we had called in for the service engineer. And we were struggling to reach out to the control panel of a geyser. So can actually AI find solution to this? Because these are real life situations. And I think as designers, we need to find more and more ways to also make life of, as I said, not only the buyer, but also the other people who are involved in the entire process of the product being consumed. Can we make life more easier? And can AI really find a solution? This is the big question. Well, I would like to conclude by saying, by quoting a very famous saying by Emmett Wolf: "A man is only as good as his tools." And what best example would be than to highlight this project by Draper, wherein they had actually created this "Take Me Home" button on a space suit, which actually is used by NASA astronauts. And the beauty of this concept is that during a spacewalk, there are chances where the astronaut might get lost in space. And with this "Take Me Home" button, one can actually find his or her or her way back to the spacecraft. And there's a lot of data and which is required to actually come to an algorithm which would actually help do this. But what I wanted to focus here was that the thought of having a take me home button is not from data, is from the creative intelligence part, is from empathy. And I think with that thought, I would leave you with this, that design with empathy, and that's what is going to bring more life to us designers as the products we create for the manufacturing sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandip, for your insightful session. I'm sure everyone learnt the importance of digital adoption for their businesses.